Hi, guys. It's Thursday as I record this. I hope you're all having a good week. This is part two on classes. Last week, if you remember, we did classes. I did a couple videos, and you all did a quick project on all classes on one .cpp file. We're breaking it up more like a computer program or software engineer would. All right, we're going to bust what we did last week up into three sections. One, the actual class. Two, we're going to make a header file out of the member functions. And then we're going to have a main, sort of like a driver that drives the whole program. All right, this isn't your last chance to see this. I'm gonna make another video off of another program, but if there's ever one that could probably be watched twice, or I'm definitely hoping that you're all taking notes on these. This is kind of important. All right. I hope you're all just not watching it. They're doing this in passing while you're eating dinner or watching the news or something like that. That wasn't the intention with these. But here we go. I'm going to get started. First thing is, I want you to look over here into the Solution Explorer. I've got three files, and I've got them in different places. Let's go to the main first. This is what you're used to seeing. Here's the main. Okay, that looks a lot like what you're used to, just a lot of input, output. One of the things you might notice up here in the header file, this is what's different than what you're used to, is up in the header file, you have a program, an IDE generated IOStream and IOManip. You also have something called rectangle.h. That's something we put together, right? And that's over here in the rectangle under the header files, rectangle.h. Also over here in the Solution Explorer, we have rectangle.cpp, which is the member functions. And again, down in the main, we have the main, the program that actually drives this. All right, let's start with the class function, which is in a file called rectangle.h. All right, all that's in this file is the actual rectangle class. That's it. Look at it here. Class rectangle. And you're going to notice some of the same things you've seen before. Down here, I've got set width, set length, get width, get length, and get area. All right, that's the two getters and three getters and two setters we had from last week. Also, we got two private variables. Right? This rectangle is really similar to the one we had. There's a few little twists, and I want to explain those as we go along. It's actually good teaching moments to actually use this stuff. But here's some of the keys to making this header file. If we go up the top, we're going to need these wrappers. A lot of programmers call these wrappers. All right. On the outside of this class rectangle, you can see it's just like you wrote in the program last week. You're going to have this up here. You're going to have pound if and diff rectangle H, and it's usually written in uppercase like that. All right, rectangle under bar H, rectangle dot H, however you want to say it. All right, and down at the end, it's going to be concluded with pound diff. All right. If anything you put in your notes, you need to put what these wrappers are. If diff rectangle under bar H, rectangle pound define rectangle H, and end with pound diff. Okay. There's only one other thing different in this file than was written, well, besides the wrappers. The only other thing different in this file is a new concept called constructors. All right. This is really big when you were talking about classes. I got rectangle and just a couple parentheses. All right. Then I've got rectangles that I'm passing an argument to doubles. I'm going to explain what these are. It'll be easier to understand when we go over the member functions here in just a minute. I guess I lied. There is another thing that's different, and I just want to point this out. These are exact setters from what we used last week, or what I used in the video last week. Set width double, set length double, two setters. Nothing different about those. The three getters I've turned into inline getter functions. I didn't have to do this, but I just wanted to show you that it is possible. Since it's such short code, return width, return length, and return width times length, instead of putting these with the member functions, I've just made them inline functions here inside of the class. So if you remember, like we're going to go and we're going to see inside the member functions, we're going to see set length, we're going to see set width, but there will not be a get width, a get length, or get area because I've just made them inline here. Inline functions is something you don't want to go crazy on. If you do use them, make it a rule just to keep it into one line functions. So that kind of actually sets well with these type. Get width is just going to be return width. Get length is going to be return length. Get area is just going to be returning width times length. Okay. All right. So that is our header file. This file is saved over here under rectangle.h. You can see them up here, rectangle.h, rectangle.cpp, and main.cpp. The rectangle.cpp I've got over here under resource files. The header file is over here underneath header files. And the main is over under source files. I have had some luck messing around with those, putting them in different files, and it still runs, but it's best just to go ahead and use them like this. Just remember to put your driver, your main in the source file, header files in the header file, and it works well if you put the function members inside of resource files. All right, so that's our class. It's got our three getters, two setters, our private variables, and these two new things we're looking at, these two constructors, rectangle and rectangle double. Now I'm going to look at our header files that supports the class, and here they are. All right. I've got what they call a constructor. Constructor, when you make an object, a constructor is automatically initiated and made. All right. When I go back to my main and I make a rectangle, immediately one of these two constructors is going to be initiated. It's going to be made. As a programmer, it's up to me to make sure the program uses the right one. All right. So this one is called the default constructor. If I just call a regular rectangle and don't pass it arguments like this second one, it's going to make a rectangle. And, I can call them rectangle 1, house 1, whatever I want to call. All right. If I just use this first one, it's just going to go ahead and initialize width to 0 and length to 0. That's the default constructor. But I'm overloading these constructors. I'm going to have several constructors. I can have 4 or 5 if I want. All right. And the program is going to know which one to use by what I pass it. All right. This one here, if I pass it a couple doubles, it's going to know to use this constructor. And this is kind of cool. It goes ahead and takes these two doubles, puts it in width and length, and goes ahead and initializes the value, assigns the value to width and length. So it actually kind of saves a step. So in this one, it just goes ahead and initializes in the default constructor. It goes ahead and say we make rectangle rec 1. all right, and I use this constructor, it just goes ahead and sets 0 and sets width and length to 0. Now, if I make rect2 and I send it 2 doubles, it's going to know to use this constructor and then go ahead and assign the values that I send it to width and length. Remember, we're talking about objects here. And I think the code in main is going to make that kind of clear. All right, I'm going on down through here. Here's the set width, the setters. Remember, the getters I did inline. They're not going to be on this page. Okay, just like last week, you've got rectangle, colon, colon, set width. I'm sending it a double. I could get by with just taking this W and assigning it to width, but I'm just showing that you can put a little bit more into these setters and getters. It's all up to you. I'm making sure it uses a positive number. If it doesn't use a positive number, it's going to see out invalid width. All right, exit failure. Same way with set length. I'm going to send it a double, and it's going to check to make sure make sure it's positive. So here's my member functions. Setter. There's no getters on this page because all the getters were done inline inside of the class. And here's my 2 constructors. My default constructor, which is just basically initializes everything to 0. I pass it no arguments. And then there's my overloaded operator rectangle, or my overloaded function rectangle, which I'm going to send 2 doubles, and it's immediately going to set it up. The default constructor, I'm going to have to go in and put set width and set length to. I won't have to do that with any object I make using the second constructor, because I'm going to go ahead and right off the bat and send it 2 values. I think the main will make this clear. All right. So here's the main, and I needed to go back and show you need to go back 1 second. So inside of the member functions, the rectangle.cpp file, I have to include rectangle.h. Notice that it uses quotation marks. All right. I need that for this to support the class. Same way with main.cpp, I need to add as a header file, I need to use rectangle.h. So both of the .cpp files call on the header file. All right, the rest of the code is pretty cut and dry. All right, I got 2 local variables, house width and house length. And I'm going to use the rectangle class to actually figure area. So I'm going to cin house width and house length. Then I'm going to call rectangle house 1. All right. When I call it like that, when I don't send it any parameters, I'm making an object house 1. I'm not sending it any parameters, so it's using the default constructor. That default constructor, remember, has length and width set at 0. So I've made an object, and it's got house and width in it with a 0 to it. Now I'm going to use some of my member functions. Set width, I'm going to assign it the house width I just asked for, and then house length that I just asked for. Then I'm just going to output the data. Okay, to output the data, I'm going to use get width, get length. I'm going to use all 3 of my getters, get width, get length, and get area. And you can see, remember, as a reminder, use the same as you would a struct. House 1, the object I made, dot get width, house 1 dot get length, house 1 dot get area. All right, so this whole first set of data, I used a default constructor. one that's just gonna when I when I make an object, it just goes ahead and sets both of those variables, length and width, sets it to 0. All right, here I'm going to make a second object. All right, I'm going to ask the user again, please see in house width and house length. Then I'm going to send both of the variables to this overloaded constructor, right? And I'm going to make an object called house2. Up here, I made house1. Down here, I'm making house2. I'm sending it two doubles, so I don't have to go in and use my setters like I did on the first one, because I'm using the constructor that goes ahead and sets those values, um, of length and width inside the object. And again, I'm just going to see out the data. House2, get width, house2, get length, house2, get area. Two objects, two sets of data, two totally different objects. All right, I'm going to run this. In feet, how wide is your house? Let's make this 30 by 40. So there's the data. It's a 1,200 square foot house. Now this second house, my second object, I'm going to make 40 by 50. So it should be a 2,000 square foot house. There you go. There's the data, right? This first one, I used the default constructor. Then after calling the default constructor, which set width and length to 0, then I assigned it 30 and 40. And the second one, I just went ahead and used the second constructor and sent it 40 and 50, and it made an object already with the data inside of it. Then I calculated it, and it's 2,000 square feet. All right. Like I said, I would suggest if you didn't take notes, at the very least, you watch this again. I'm going to make another video with a totally different example and send it out this weekend. And then on Monday night, we are going to work, and this will be a real project, not just a check-off project for me to add to your daily work grade. This will be a real program. I'm going to assign a program using the 3 files. You're going to make a class file and put it in your .h. You're going to make your member functions that support that class and put them in rectangle, or not. You're putting it in your .cpp file that's under resources. It's going to be the member functions. Then you're going to make a driver, a main program that runs using your class functions, your classes, and their functions. All right, be looking for another video. Should have it up by Saturday. Hope you all have a good weekend, and I will see you all on Monday night.